Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. You may have noticed me posting a little less than normal the past week, and I do have a really good reason, honest. I've been playing quite a bit of Shadowlands. Now I know this channel's nearly all about the classic scene, but I was just your regular WoW player long before I ever really started to focus on classic as my main game. The game's been out for less than a week as well now, so of course I know everything there is possible to know about the new content, so let's get into it. Starting with the launch, and I could never imagine missing an expansion launch, well, ever really. It's always one of the most hype times in the game, so there I was, 11 PM on launch night. Yep, that is when it releases in the UK, and NA gets it in the middle of the afternoon. It's alright for some, isn't it? Anyway, I have to say it was literally the most smooth expansion launch I have ever seen. I did see a fair few servers going down, particularly some of the massive ones like Draenor, but by and large, it was just so seamless. One moment I'm standing there in front of Stormmoon Keep, then Whitemane pops up in front of us all, Mograine gives us the talk, and the journey begins. Getting a Nixia buff on weekends is laggier than this in Classic than the whole expansion launch experience was. It's crazy. And I can't wait to see how this shapes up when compared to the inevitable TBC launch, which is going to be a real fiesta in comparison. And then after that, I was thrown straight into the main storyline for this expansion head first. I actually approached this expansion pretty differently compared to how I usually would. Normally, I already know I'm going to be raiding as my main endgame goal, so I want to catch that early gearing phase through dungeons and mythics, and trying out all the new various toys we get. This time though, I didn't go in with plans to raid. I may do it, but just at a heroic level perhaps, whereas I don't feel I can commit the time to mythic on top of classic raiding. I think that'd be a good recipe to get pretty burned out, and having no reason to rush, I paid a lot more attention to the story than I think I usually would have. Now you can see I've got my Azeroth autopilot add-on, of course, that's telling me where to go, selling stuff, handing stuff in for me. I wasn't going to sit there reading the 1000th justification some poor guy at Blizzard has to come up with for go kill 10 bears and collect 8 bones. And there was a lot of that type of questing, of course, like a lot. It is an MMO at the end of the day. The main quest line was very different too, in that for once it was totally linear. At least the first time. I understand you can make more choices where you would like to level on alts, but your main character gets the full spectacle. And let me tell you what hits you, these zones are insanely detailed. Like, I was gushing over Tirigard Sound in BFA, and High Mountain in Legion, but this is just on another level entirely. It's like, you know when you see a game demo and it says not actual gameplay in the bottom right corner or something? Shadowlands is every bit as good as it was shown to be in all the cinematics. Okay, the models are a bit better in cutscenes, but the zones themselves, I mean, wow. The art team is the best team at Blizzard. Incredible. The music's great too, and I'd always recommend giving your first playthrough with the in-game sounds on. It's well worth it in my opinion. As for the 50 to 60 journey, I only finally got there on Friday. I know, right? What a casual. Usually I'd be there by day 2 at the minimum. And it was extremely story driven. The zones interlink in various ways, there's loads of cutscenes, and it does a good job of giving you your Covenant's toys nice and early to test them. I could try and compare it to the classic leveling experience, but it's just so different. And this is going to sound like the biggest classic fanboy thing ever, but retail leveling actually felt like a good single player game. And I preferred the pacing of classic leveling, however Shadowlands had much more story going for it. Whereas classic and story, there's not much of that, is there? Shadowlands leveling felt very polished. Most of it was voice acted, loads of cutscenes, the whole story to set up the endgame, would definitely recommend. Also on your alts you aren't forced to do the same totally linear questing, you can opt in something at any time through your second character once you start the endgame on your first, called the Threads of Fate, which essentially checks off all the main quest storylines, so you're free to level wherever you want, and just do dungeons, world quests, side quests, whatever you like really. So each time you go through Shadowlands after your first time, you can make it different or do things you enjoy more. You do have to do the full storyline the first time through on your main though. And then you finally get to 60 and make that big decision of which Covenant you're gonna join. Of course I went with the Fairy Gang. The on-use ability is pretty solid in all situations for Warlocks, and Soul Shape is super nice to have since Warlock and Mobility has, well, never existed really. Then you start hitting up the actual endgame content, and it's a pretty familiar gameplay loop that you get from WoW to be honest, but with some notable changes to improve your life from how it was in the early days of BFA. Remember having to do literally all the rep grinds early on if you wanted your character to be the best they could. You had to do every single world quest every single day for a good while, which was pretty painful. In Shadowlands you have your standard gearing through questing, to world quests, to dungeons, heroics, and then finally mythics. and we still have some time before the raid opens too on the 8th of December for normal and heroic. Mythic as well as LFR Wing 1 will be December 15th, and then a new wing for LFR will be open each subsequent week up to the 4th wing. As for other activities, I think the best way I can put it is there's a lot to do, but you don't have to do a lot of it, unless you want to. Wow, what a revolutionary way of playing the game. Crazy. Your Covenant Sanctum, there will be what is basically the daily emissary from BFA, go to another zone and do some stuff, come back and get a box which has some loot, anima, and a bit of gear that scales with your gear as well as your renown. As you progress your Covenant story, your renown increases, unlocking passive and active benefits. There are catch-up systems for other Covenants too, should you choose to change. Also, there is some form of progression cap, so you don't have to go crazy to cap this out per week. I got it within a few hours of being 60, no problem just by playing the game normally really. The anima you get from this and other in-game activities is used to power the Sanctum Reservoir for other various benefits. And then you have the Maw, which has three main things. Stygia, used to progress your reputation with an NPC to unlock various permanent benefits within the Maw, add sockets to items, or discover various conduits which you currently don't have. So the sockets aren't just entirely RNG anymore, which is good. The Rune Carver, who crafts your legendaries, and Torghast, which is the other part of Diablo that wasn't covered in the Mythic Plus system, is now in WoW. You get Soul Ash from Torghast needed to make Legos. It also has a weekly cap, so you don't need to endlessly play to be the best. So that is about as brief of a coverage as I can do, and to be honest, at the moment I'm hearing a lot of good things about Shadowlands, and I don't really have too many negatives to throw out there myself. Probably the biggest complaint is you cannot mount inside the Maw. By the way, the first time you go to the Maw as part of your main story, there's this elite called Borg Geth. Drops this item, combine that with a Goblin Glider, and it's a pretty nice way to get around, or just be a druid. I have to say, for Torghast itself, I'm not too sold on it at the moment. I think I'm still quite undergeared, and I haven't found a great way to make Warlock to be able to do great things, but I think I just need to play it a bit more and have a bit more input on my end. It is interesting, however, that it's not time-bound like Mythic Plus is. It's just about finishing the floor and trying to put together the strongest build possible. I like the majority of the dungeons. The only one that kind of stood out as annoying was Spires of Ascension. There must be a good half a dozen times we were flown around the instance by an NPC. Just throw a few jump pads in there, like Throne of the Four Winds or something, I'd say. Other ones that stood out were The Other Side and the Theatre of Pain. The locations just looked really cool and thematic. They had interesting bosses that used the environment. Pretty much what's not to like with both of these, really. Still need to get a proper look into all of them on Mythic level though, but no rush for me, I'll see it eventually. As for the whole expected Covenant drama, it still remains to be seen. Blizzard have significantly toned down their power over the course of the beta, so it's less of an impactful decision than it once was. The real test for me will be on the Mythic opening week for raids, to be honest. Usually Blizzard do Heroic Week tuning after they've seen how all the classes perform and then adjust them from there for the Mythic Week. But with a 2-week turnaround to change Covenant, it feels like they kind of can't touch them for some time now, or it will really risk messing a lot of the more hardcore players up in the short term. And the World First race is a pretty big deal as well, so I reckon it's in the best interest to have it the most competitive it can possibly be, which means pretty much not touching Covenants for a while. And I still kind of feel for the guys whose best pick is a zone they don't really mesh with that much though. I almost went Kyrian and yeah, it's a bit too bright for me over there, if that makes sense. I actually don't mind being Night Fae, the zone looks insanely good. So I'm pretty happy to be spending time here, to be honest. All in all, Shadowlands is off to a very respectable start. We're still in the early days. I mean, even Warlords of Draenor looked good-ish in the early days. When there's a lot to do and it's all new, it's kind of hard to hate it, really. On the complaints side from myself, nothing too glaring yet either. All I need is somebody to make an add-on for the mission table thingy, because I have no idea what's going on and I'm not really interested in learning it, to be honest. I felt like the BFA mission thingy was fine. I don't know, maybe it's more of a thing for mobile, or it's meant to be integrated into mobile. Anyways, I know this is largely a classic channel, but have any of you guys given Shadowlands a go so far? Any particularly strong opinions about it? Maybe you're still a bit on the fence, a bit unsure. If that's the case, I give it a few more weeks and see how things look after Mythic Week has opened at the earliest, see what the general consensus is then. If you'd like more retail type stuff, I'm going to be playing it pretty casually so long as I'm still enjoying it, and I'm very happy to do more on it when the opportunity arises, so let me know either way. But for now, thanks all so much for watching and listening in. I do hope if you've given it a go that you're enjoying the new expansion and your class, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be plenty more to come. thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.